Hi, Tricia. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Whitney. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you again. We already had a nice, good chat on mine, and now we're doing yours. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, because I'm really excited to tune in and learn more about animal communication and hypnotherapy. Because when I was on your show, you were sharing a little testimony from one of your students who had an experience with their dog and it not eating and not drinking anymore. Would you mind sharing that with our
Oh,
audience?
yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And, I have so many, but that one is from actually someone who just graduated from my animal communication certification course. I just love doing it because I'll just share with you too. This person, she's allowed me to share her experience. I've even blasted it out on social media. She's super excited about it. She's been doing intuitive work for a little while because I've trained her in all of those other things too. And so, she's a mature person. She's not like 20, you know what I mean? The reason I frame it that way is because before she took the animal communication course, she didn't know that she could telepathically communicate with animals. So that's one thing. When I share the story, I want people to know that even if you're like, I have never experienced that, so it must not be something I have. No, we do. We
Yes.
just need the framework for it. You know what I mean? And I was just telling my husband that this morning. I was like, if I had you join one of my classes and just, I'll give you instructions on how to do it, you'll blow your own mind. So anyway, so what happened with this student? Her dog. She calls it her dog, but he lives with her daughter in another state. So she's like, my dog doesn't live with me; he lives with my daughter. The dog had stopped drinking and also stopped eating, which, of course, as a chef and knowing so much about nutrition, if you're dehydrated, it can affect your gut. It can affect your appetite. And so, like, both of these things had started to happen. And so, of course, they were making a doctor's appointment. They're going to take the dog to the vet. But since my student, her name is Betty, had just graduated from certain animal communication course, her daughter's like, "Mom, can you do your thing? Can you see if you know what's going on with him?" And so she did. Animal telepathy works remotely. It doesn't have to be in person. I mean, just obviously, it's all just etheric energy. It's just the thought and feeling energy. So some people are surprised by that. Like, you don't have to be in person or in dog to be able to communicate telepathically with a dog. And so she did. She tapped in, and the dog. She's like, asked the dog, how come you're not drinking or eating? And the dog told her, I don't like the way that water tastes. I don't know what's going on with that water. And so my Betty like reached out, called her daughter, and she's like, "What are you giving him for water?" And they're like, just the tap water." And she's like, "Okay, no. First of all, clean that bowl really, really well. And then you need to get him bottled water. I know some people think that's fancy for dogs, but he needs bottled water." He went right to that bowl, lapped up the water right away, and it stimulated his appetite. He got all hydrated. He ate right away, too. So they didn't even have to go to the vet. He was perfectly fine. He just, he has a sensitivity. I mean, anyway, we know tap water in my area, it actually smells of bleach. And you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't smell right. And they have even stronger senses than we do. So he wasn't sure about it. He wasn't comfortable drinking that water. And it just started to cascade through what would have been a lot of health issues. Can you imagine? He would have
Yeah.
gone to the vet, run tests, hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands. Nothing's wrong with him. We don't know. We'll give him steroids, we'll give him antibiotics, we'll give him whatever. And it was just because the water didn't taste/smell good to him. And it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
What do you often get people that reach out to you because dogs or any pet doesn't want to eat anymore?
No, actually, not a lot. It usually has to, but when it does happen, it does have to do with like maybe they're ill. And one thing, and when I connect on that in that area, a lot of times it's not actually a terrible sign. They have some kind of illness, and as we know as humans, we know that fasting can be medicine. It can reset our gut. Even though it's alarming to us, sometimes it's actually just the intelligence of the organism of the animal's body doing what it needs to do to, overcome something. On the other hand, There are, like, cats can tend to be a bit finicky. That's something that happens. And that usually has to do with needing more stimulation, because if they were in nature, if they were getting their own food, and our bodies evolve very slowly, mammals' bodies evolve very slowly. And even though they are domesticated biologically, they
Hmm.
still function very much like their wild ancestry. And if they were eating rodents, they wouldn't eat the same rodent every day, and that the rodents that they eat would eat different things than the other rodent ate yesterday. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
there's and cats actually need to have the charge, like they need to have the fight and flight system activated, so they can develop they can boost the enzymes that will actually break down food. So
Yes.
playing with your cat before you feed them can help, so that they don't, get finicky about the same old. So
Yeah.
a lot of different things that
I
are
think
going
people
on.
forget that that happens for them too. So when you start preparing your meal, that's starting the digestive process in you, whether you're looking at the food,
Yes.
touching the food, smelling the food as it heats up. That's all starting the digestive process for us too. So that's so interesting that that's
Yeah.
still really important for cats, that they need to play with their food before they start eating it. And maybe
Hmm.
that's a sign of what, that's what most kids and babies do. They have to play with it first before they eat it. Because maybe at some
Yeah.
intuitive level, they know that that's what they need to do to get their new digestive system on track.
Yes, yes, that's so true. I mean, we have so much more in common, especially from different species of mammals, than we have, not in common, including, by the way, the reason we can communicate telepathically with animals with so much, with so much robust languaging and everything, is because all the mammals have a part of the brain called the mammalian brain, which is the emotional brain. And so we have, I mean, just talking about mammals, I could talk about like different parts of the brain that birds have that are similar to ours too. But just with mammals, we have the same spectrum of emotions. And so that's what's being sent is emotional experiences that, show up as thoughts and pictures and all kinds of things. So it makes perfect sense if you think about it that way. We have the exact same spectrum of emotional languaging or communication or experiencing. That's why we can telepathically communicate with animals to that degree.
So, with some people, does animal communication come before regular traditional mediumship or vice versa? What do you usually see?
Well, most people go for mediumship or intuitive reading before animal communication. I don't know exactly why. Maybe it's not as well known. Like you said, you haven't really talked to someone who's an animal communicator, but for me, that was the first thing that I opened up.
Yeah.
It was it was like the thing as I was going through my spiritual awakening process. It was the first thing that made itself known. And like when I came out, as we say, come out of the closet, out of the broom closet to
Yes.
my family, they were like, "Duh, this is not a surprise."
Yeah.
So I opened up animal communication first, and then while I was a little bit into that process, I went to one class one day to a person who teaches mediumship. And she just, kind of took one look at me and said, "Well, you're a medium." And I was like, "Oh." And this was funny. This is where I was. I was like, "I don't even know if I believe in that." She's
I can
like,
talk to
"Hold on,
animals,
hold
but
on."
I don't know if I believe in talking to like ghosts and dead people and,
Exactly. The way she said it, she's like, "Oh, hold on, hold on. You said you're practicing animal communication." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Have you been talking to past animals?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Okay, so you're a human. You can talk to past humans too." So yeah, that's but I would say, I don't know, I don't know why. I'd have to give it a contemplation, but it's probably for some reason it's not quite as well known, or maybe there aren't as many
Yeah.
teachers of it. I really don't know why.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up. What's been really interesting as a chef who works in people's homes, I often see, you know, dead animals. I often see animal ghosts.
Oh.
So,
Oh.
yeah, I have a lot of clients who have pets, but I also have clients that don't have pets. And when I'm in their home, I'll see a cat or a dog consistently over and over and over again. And if I feel like that client's open to them, I'll ask them, I was like, I see this. like, do you guys have like a ghost cat? And sometimes the client will know about it because they've seen it before too. Um, have you had that experience where anyone's called you because they see a ghost in their home, but it's an animal?
Um, I've seen them in other people's houses, but I have to be honest, specifically no. It will be people, wanting to I do animal mediumship as well as animal communication with, the actual incarnated animal, but people wanting to make that connection. And it's just very the same way that, you know, but I don't have it to where if we're like there's an earthbound cat or something like that. I do have past animals in two ways, like it being a ghost in the sense that it's a past animal who hasn't crossed over yet.
Hmm.
I've had them come to me a lot, and some of the reasons that they do come to me is because they want a little comfort in that brief moment before they cross over. It's like they see the light that has to do with that understanding and that awareness. And then one time, my cat Barnabas was napping under the coffee table, and suddenly he went like "Rear," boom, and hit his body or his head at the top of the coffee table and ran out. And I was like, "Whoa, what happened?" And he like showed me. He goes, "Oh, well, I was sleeping, but then I was kind of awake, and there was like," and he showed me a picture. It looked like a big rodent, like raccoon or a possum. I think it was a raccoon, and it was like in my face, and it was all mad. He goes, but because I was asleep for a second, I thought it was a physical one, but it wasn't. He went away. It was a ghost. And I was like, oh, okay. So I reached out to this crossing over rodent, and the rodent said, I just got hit by a car, and I didn't know for a second that I was dead. And I just wound up at your house because, again, because of the light and the love and the connection. And so I moved on. I've moved on, but I just kind of like showed up there for a second when I realized I was actually dead.
Oh, that's
Lots
so
of interesting
sad.
stories.
Is there
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that
but he was fine with it.
is there something that we can do when we see a poor animal on the side of the road that's been hit? Is there something that we can
Oh,
emotionally or quietly say to ourselves or to that animal as we're driving by?
yeah. I kind of make amends on behalf of humanity. I apologize that we have machines that are so unnatural that they didn't really understand how to navigate this technology. Why should they be able to? And so I just kind of make amends and ask for forgiveness and ask. Then I just kind of pray and say, please help to make me a more resourceful and aware guardian and steward of nature and of animals and help me to spread that understanding, awareness, and responsibility to, my fellow humans. And I just try to come really present with the collective. I'm a part of this collective. I drive a car, so thank God I have never had that. I've never collided with an animal, but yeah, it's that's what I do just to help me to get mindful of this situation. And prayer works. Prayer is an energy healing, and amends and atonement work. They're a part of our spiritual growth process. So yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you for sharing. Well, hopefully we don't see anything in our travels anytime soon. But on
Yeah.
a little more positive note, are there any general questions that you find your clients who reach out to you to do one-on-one readings with their pets? Any general questions that they always ask?
Yeah, they always ask like, how can I make you happy? Are you
Hmm.
happy? How can I make you, more comfortable? Is there anything, just that wonderful heart of guardianship of, loving someone so deeply. Those are the most common questions. And other than that, they are a bit random. I mean, they do whether they ask or not. I do ask, how is your food? How is your water?
Yeah.
How is their bathroom situation? How is their physical activity situation? And that's like I would say a secondary common, but it's always, are they happy? How can I help them to be happy? It's so wonderful.
Are there general things that you find that most pets during this time would like more of to make their lives a little more comfortable or happier?
See, the thing is, it's interesting, is it feels like a very transcendent experience, and it is. But however, I should say that I do direct communication with the animal first, meaning I connect with the incarnated personality of the animal, which includes, a higher, I think they're spiritually more advanced than we are. But it's important to know that if I ask them, what food do you like? And a doggy says, I want all the bacon and the peanut butter, that
Yeah.
it's like a kid asking for Twinkies.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's important for me to, but I also contextualize it. How does your food feel how does your body feel in response to your food? How does it feel in your body? Because they'll be honest about that. This makes my tummy hurt. It tastes good, but it makes my tummy hurt. Or
Yeah.
I don't like the way this tastes. So I ask nuanced questions to get to the heart of what it is we need to know to be able to support them. And yeah, so I forgot exactly what the question was, but those are the kinds of critical ways I need to present what it is. And but I can also talk to their higher selves. But the reason I do direct communication is because if you imagine you have a friend or a partner, let's say your partner, and you need to communicate with them face to face. You know what I mean? Like, we can't just be pulling our oracle cards to say, what is he thinking? That wouldn't be respectful. So that's what I intend to do, even if, and so that's what that leads us to is hilarity, because they have senses of humor. Everything that makes you laugh about your animal, they
Oh,
intend to do that and even more. They love for us to be laughing. They love for us to, so, oh yeah, what do they want more of? That's some of it. They want us to lighten up. They want us to accept ourselves. They want us to laugh and be happy. When we ask them, how can I make you happy? They're like, be
mhm.
happy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much like you're talking to kids is
Yes.
when you are happy and calm and in a good place, that's all they want for their parents.
Absolutely. And it makes perfect sense because I know sometimes people who aren't really animal people and they poke fun at people who call their animals their children. But it
Hmm.
makes perfect sense why we do that. We are their physical guardians. It's
Hmm.
like they are our spiritual guardians because animals surpass us spiritually. They just do. When they become mature, when they're babies, they're babies. Just they have a stage of an arc of development, of personal development. But when they reach personal maturity, they surpass us spiritually. I mean, we know they're better at unconditional love than we are. And so, but we are always their physical guardians. And that's why there is this really beautiful dynamic. There are spiritual guardians and we're their physical guardians. So, of course, it feels like a parent child relationship in a lot of ways. And so, yes, they are dependent on our happiness. They are
Hmm.
relationally dependent on us. We give them their food, their activity, their medicine. We keep them healthy physically. So they are dependent on us, similarly to children. And they are, I mean, more advanced than us emotionally and spiritually. So, of course, they just want us to be happy because that will make their lives, the family, happier, right?
Yeah. A lot of people these days are rescuing animals, rescuing dogs from a shelter or dogs that have been on the streets, cats, even guinea pigs. Do these animals know that they've been rescued?
Oh, they're so happy. And you can see videos of it. I saw a video on probably Instagram, where this woman, there was a tiny chihuahua who was walking up to her, crying, like screaming, and terrified, and was cowering. But as the woman was just able to give her a touch, she melted into her arms and was all kisses and loveys and was so, I mean, I can hear it, as in a manner of speaking, her saying, finally I'm home, finally I'm home. And that's what it feels like in the love of their human, their new human, they're home.
Yeah.
And that's so, yes, they know that they're being rescued from this cruel world. Dogs and cats, for example, are biologically domesticated. We interfered upon their species development. So a homeless dog is like a homeless human. They need shelter. They are biologically altered to have a domestic life. So live. I mean, maybe there's some feral, semi-feral situations where they're still cared for, like barn cats and stuff like that. That can be a situation where they actually live somewhere in between feral and domestic. I mean, like a
Yes.
happily feral. domesticated animal, if they're cared for and they have a barn they can sleep in and stuff. So, but yes, they absolutely are waiting for rescue. They're waiting for a home to find them. And it's what we have created, that both by interfering on their species, if we're talking about the domesticated ones, and by the different things like roads and pollution and everything that makes it feel like they aren't in any situation that is home. It's because of what we've actually created. So yeah, for sure, they know that they feel it when they come home.
So, what's the most unexpected animals you've been asked to communicate with, or you've chosen to communicate with yourself?
Well, in my early part of my practice before I was a professional, I communicated with a tortoise who was in hibernation. And that was when it was actually a fellow psychic development. She was learning mediumship. I was, in animal communication, so we were trading practices.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, yeah. And so she was like, well, she had like a cat and some birds, and she's like, well, I have a tortoise too, but he's hibernating. Can you talk to a hibernating tortoise? And I'm like, let's try it out. I have no idea. And it was one of the most incredible experiences I've had with an animal. And, when I first tapped in, he was like, of course, this is a good time to talk to me. This is when I do my soul work. And described to me that he like astral travels, he goes to different like dimensions, but then he also goes into his body so he can experience deep silent rest, and it's just like such a wonderful time. Or
Wow.
yeah. And I've also communicated with a beta fish, those fish that
Yes.
are, yeah. And
Yes. A singular fish that most people have in a bowl at home. Yeah.
exactly. And he had two of them, and they were in separate bowls.
Hmm.
And I talked to each of them, and it was so funny because he was like, "Oh my gosh, I like everything you're saying. Like I felt like that's what their personality was like, but I didn't know for sure. I thought I was
Yeah.
projecting it, but you know, you would think that's a little fish. How do we have anything in common? But it was like talking about the kind of personality, what their essence was like, the different things that they enjoy in their environment, what they want to stay the same or change. And it was like, I remember one of them was really spry and like peppy, and the
Yes.
other one was a little more chill and laid back. And he's like, that's exactly what I observe in them. That's so weird. I thought I made
Oh,
it up.
yeah. They were super popular pets when I was growing up to have one of those fish. Um, and, you're always told to keep them separate because they're fighter fish. If you put them in with other fish, they'll attack. Um, so that's a very interesting
Yeah,
reading.
it was. It was fun.
So, do you find, now people are becoming more aware of the animals in their everyday life? So, if they go outside to eat lunch and a butterfly flies by, or a beetle crawls up on the table, or they see a dragonfly, people are becoming really hyper aware of everything they're seeing. Are they over analyzing, or is there something there that they should be aware of?
I'm freaking out because I had this huge spiritual transformation moment where I was about to go on a hike. I was sitting in my car, and I heard my spirit guides tell me butterfly, dragonfly, beetle. And you named those three. And I remember, and I've told it on my podcast before, so you can
No
fact check
way.
this. This is
No.
how, this is Whitney's psychic abilities. Literally said them. I was like, if she says beetle, I'm going to freak out.
And this wasn't a question I wrote down to ask you ahead of time. This just like dropped in, and I was like, "Oh, I think I need to ask her."
Yeah. So, I mean, spoiler alert to your question. No, I mean, yes, they could be, of course. We could be making meaning of it that is not helpful. But the thing is that animals are open vessels for divine. That means, and they're operating in the field of synchrony, and divine can just come and move them
Hmm.
where they, can be moved, to enhance their experience and our experience. And when I had that, got out of my car and I heard the butterfly, dragonfly, beetle, and for a moment, I almost rejected it. I was like, that's too many signs. I don't deserve those signs. And they're like, hey, go for it, go listen. And they all showed up. And when I saw the beetle, the third thing, I just like was weeping. I was so like, just so blessed, feeling how blessed that I am. And so the thing is that actually, we were talking, maybe we're going to talk about hypnotherapy
Mhm.
with what the way that we think, the balance. If we can think about like spiritual and grounding or astral and grounding, we need both. If you think of subconscious mind and conscious mind, and so there is empirical thinking, which is evidential thinking. It's logical. It's something that is like science is empirical. There is proof. There is repeatable evidence that many people can experience together, and that's important. We need that. Obviously, we need that for medicine, and that's a part of our life that we need. We need the logical thinking as well. And then there's hermeneutical thinking, which is making meaning of things. And don't we need that as well? We just need to know when we're doing which kind and to have that be balanced. Because if we're doing hermeneutical thinking and it is helping us, it's lifting our mood, it's helping us to feel like we're not alone, it's giving us some kind of expanded experience, and we can feel that it is making us better. Maybe it's making us a better steward of mankind and nature if we're connecting with the butterfly. Then that's good. And that meaning that we're making, if we allow ourselves to do that, I don't like to say believe, I've just experienced it, that the butterfly is co-creating that with us. And I have a really amazing butterfly story too. I don't
Oh,
know how many we want to get into though.
feel free to share.
Well, this is a totally different experience than the butterfly, beetle, and dragonfly one. And I was on one of my favorite hikes, and there's this corner that you kind of turn, and people all love it because it's got like this felled branch that people make a bench out of. And I call it the butterfly bend because there's just tons of butterflies. They're in the trees there. There must be the really, the nice environment for them. And so I sat on the branch, the little, bench that we've put from this felled branch, and this butterfly came and landed right before me. And so I must have been in an altered state anyway. Hiking and being in nature is very meditative, and that's what we
Mhm.
do in order to connect with the realms of psychism or the telepathic realms is to alter. And so I felt like this whoosh, like connection, this merging and resonance with the butterfly. And so, since I felt that kind of spiritual transformation into this space with the butterfly, I asked the butterfly, "Do you have a message for me?" And the response came back to me. I did not expect it at all. The butterfly said, "Well, do you have a message for me?" It was almost like, how rude. Why would you expect I have to give you a message? But it was this perspective shift that it offered me, like, well, but do you have a message for me? Like, why don't you go first? And it was really beautiful too, because it made me feel like equal. He was like
Yeah,
equalizing. Yeah.
that was a
And so
totally unexpected response from the butterfly.
exactly. So that feels evidential to me. It's obviously a personal evidence, but so I kind of, oh, okay, well, I guess I really appreciate that, where I used to be and where I am now. I appreciate the growth that I've experienced, and I don't regret so much that how I used to be, less evolved. And this word regret, he was kind of like, what does regret mean? And he didn't understand it. And so I was like, oh, well, regret is like I did something and I wish I didn't do it. And I was like, and I was kind of asking, like, you don't have regret? And he's like, well, no, I flap my wings and it's just a part of the dance. There isn't any way to regret it because it's all just moving together. But he was getting some whole, by the way, at the time, I didn't think about the butterfly flaps its wing and, that whole parable that we have. And I was like, he's like, oh, should I have regret? He was like asking me, and he felt young. And he's like, should I have regret? And then another butterfly came and sat next to him. And he joined, and his energy felt like an elder.
Yeah.
And he said, no one is to regret anything, but it's all about growth. And, even though this human is having the experience of regret, it's actually an illusion because this human will understand that she's a part of the dance as well at some point. And it's just kind of like, I was like, whoa. I mean, so
This is a
that's in nature.
darling,
That meant something to me.
yeah, no, this is a darling children's book. I hope you write it. It would be
I
absolutely
have.
darling. Oh, good,
I
good.
have.
It is darling.
Again, look how psychic you are. I have, it's not published. I have 3 children's books that have to do with experiences that I've had. Well, one with Maury the tortoise, that's the tortoise I told you about, one with a tree, and one with the 2 butterflies. And so thank you for saying that. I'm encouraged. At some point, it's been gestating for like 5 years.
Yeah,
And
it's a darling
illust
story.
they're actually illustrated too. I just haven't like moved it to the publishing part. So thank you.
There's your confirmation. Now it's time.
It's time. And you're a manifester, so manifest like you gotta get to it, right?
Yeah, you just got to get it done. And that's so interesting you say that. Yeah, just go forth and get it done.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, when along this journey of working as a medium, did you decide you needed to tap into hypnotherapy? And that was another skill you needed added.
Well, it's interesting because I was looking into it for probably 2 or 3 years, like from the beginning even. And I bought like a Udemy course and it didn't feel right. And so then it was like, I don't know, just by the way, meditation is hypnosis. It falls under the umbrella of hypnosis. So when someone is guiding a meditation, they're actually hypnotizing you. They're just maybe not using more advanced hypnotherapeutic tools and skills, but it is still altering a person with your guidance. And, I mean, hypnotherapy involves specifically being able to intentionally work with the subconscious mind to shift beliefs and habits and, the way that things are. So we use suggestions. I mean, I would say we also self-hypnotize. And when we give ourselves affirmations, those are hypnotic suggestions too. So there's different ways that we are all actually using hypnosis but as a hypnotherapist, that like moment that came, I had someone on my podcast who was a hypnotherapist and she was talking about HMI. And I was like, what's HMI? And she's like, oh, it's HMI College of Hypnotherapy. It's just over, she was in studio. She's like, it's just here in the valley. We're in Los Angeles. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've seen the sign. You've seen it? Have you seen it? Because I'm
I
driving through
don't
the
know if
valley
I've seen
in LA.
HMI. I have seen the school for acupuncture that's off,
Oh, okay.
that's, right on the main strip in the valley. Is it Ventura Boulevard?
Okay.
But I haven't seen
Yes, Ventura.
HMI.
Yeah.
I'll probably notice it now.
Yeah, it's on the 101 in Tarzana is where it's located. And it was so funny when she said that. I was like, oh, because they actually have a freeway sign saying next exit, HMI College of Hypnotherapy.
I've seen it.
And
Yes.
yes, okay.
As you're driving
When you're
towards
going north.
Calabasas. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was so funny when she said that. I was like, I can't believe I've seen that sign 100 or more times. And I've been looking online for it. And somehow the place that's 10 miles from my house was obscured from my awareness until the time was right. And the time was perfectly right. So I signed up for HMI. That was back in 2019 is when I went to my first year of HMI. And so, yeah, I don't know. I've always been interested in hypnosis. I remember being a teenager, somehow being exposed to it and understanding it, like having an intuitive understanding. It's probably I have a past life of being a hypnotherapist. I mean, it's
Yeah.
been around. It's very ancient. It's been around since Sumerian times. It's
Oh,
very
right.
old. And so I even remember in high school, a stage hypnotist came and hypnotized people so they couldn't get off their chair and stuff. And I remember thinking, well, that's one thing that can happen with hypnosis with some people, but that's not what hypnotherapy is. And that's not what real hypnosis is. I knew it was a thing that can happen,
Yeah.
but so I never some people don't understand it or they think it's like mind reading and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It's always been something that I've felt an urge and a call to. So yeah, that's how the moment showed up. And man, I ate it up with a spoon. They actually hired me before I actually graduated. I was hired as a teacher. Yeah.
What a
So yeah, that's pretty
compliment.
awesome.
So,
Yeah.
you doing hypnotherapy, is that working with the subconscious mind or is it working with a different part of the mind that I'm unaware of?
No, it works with the subconscious mind. And so essentially, the way our mind is that we have the conscious mind, which is the part of the mind that is responsible for logic, analysis, willpower, decision making. And so it really is, you can think of that as left brained. That's what it kind of correlates to thinking of left brain, right brain. But that part of the mind really only has information about what has already occurred.
Hmm.
It tries to predict the future, but that's what it does. It sorts and sifts facts. And we need that, obviously, because we need to know if it's on empty and it says I have 5 miles left, but I have 15 miles to go, I need to stop at the gas station. We need that logic. And for other reasons too. And then there's a layer that separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind, which is, by the way, the subconscious mind is in the body. It's from below the neck. And so
Oh.
that's why when we need to drop into our intuition, we dropped into the body. And our body is, what is communicating that. But that layer between conscious and subconscious is what's called the critical mind. And it's like a filter. Because the subconscious mind, the matrix of it, if you will, all of the beliefs that we have that we're holding in our subconscious, we're born with a blank slate. Obviously, babies don't have any logic. They don't have any. I mean, and the way that we are able to create some sort of, even to create the conscious mind, but we create by known associations. By
Hmm.
something happens, okay, it gets now coded in my mind that is being built. And between the ages of 0 and 8, that's when the biggest amount of that coding happens. And then it kind of matures. It's like now if I'm eating cookies after work, after a stressful day, that's a mature version of mom giving me a cookie because I skinned my knee, and she wanted to give me comfort. That's where, and God bless all the moms who did that. I understand why we want to change their mood and everything. But those associations are made. They get pictured into our life in more mature ways. But that critical mind is filtering out when we get something new. If you can imagine a new thought, a new, what we want to be, a new habit, it comes into the conscious mind and we think, I'm going to start exercising.
Hmm.
Things can only stay in the conscious mind a total of 90 minutes, but even after 30 minutes, it starts to distort. And then it gets bounced off the critical mind, because all of the things we have in our subconscious mind that we have associated with as survival, it needs to be protected. That's what is going on with our mind. And so the way that we actually are able to make any change is we're able to bypass the critical mind and get in there and make those new known associations with our positive, what we call suggestions in hypnosis, or affirmations do that. And so we have to make an opening there. And that's how things change. And I'm so bold as to say, that's how we change anything ever. Somehow you accessed your subconscious mind. And that's how you're able to get your subconscious mind to permit something new. Because the subconscious mind will get what it needs and what it believes. And it just will. This is why it's like, well, one of my teachers at school, she had twin boys. And then when they were toddlers, then she had a baby girl.
Hmm.
And she said she swears that the first words that the boys said, together, like coherently, was put the baby down. Because twin boys, so there's a lot. And she was
Yeah.
having such a hard time finding out how to get enough time to bond with her baby girl. So wouldn't you know it, she developed some kind of illness that made her bedridden. And so she had to call in help. And she spent that time with her baby girl bonding. And her subconscious mind got what she needed, time to be able to spend with her baby girl to bond. Now, would that she could have done it without the pain, of course, but that's how it happens. And she says that, so from now on, her daughter's like 30 or something like that. Every single day I connect with her and I have special bonding time with her. And so that's one way, that's one beautiful story that's not mine that I just love so much. So one thing that people can do to basically work hypnosis themselves, I've been talked about affirmations. If you meditate and get yourself altered and, feeling more open and receptive, then you can ruminate, you can give yourself those positive affirmations, and you have to feel them, because remember, it's in the body. So we want a positive feeling about them. Also, we actually move into hypnosis to go to sleep, and we're in hypnosis when we come out of sleep. It's called hypnagogic and hypnopompic. Those states are hypnotic. So if we give ourselves affirmations as we go to sleep or as we wake up in the morning to set the day, or that's when we do our meditation, that will really make big changes in your life.
That's why they always suggest meditating first thing in the morning.
Yes, and because in the morning, when we go to sleep, we disconnect from the conscious mind. I mean, our bodies, our consciousness really pulls out of the 3D experience. I mean, the body is paralyzed for part of the time that we're asleep and everything. And so we actually stop all of the thoughts, all of the learned thoughts. So when we wake up, it takes some time for the momentum of yesterday's thoughts to start. It's like they say we think 95 of the thoughts, percent of the thoughts we thought yesterday, we think today. So if we can get in there before that engine starts and create some new thoughts or, really direct it, then yeah, again, that will really help our lives.
And
Before we
that's
pick
how
up
we,
the phone.
yeah, and that's how we stop living in the past because we make sure
Totally.
we start right away with new thought patterns.
And what the mind does, we have a negativity bias. Our mind has a negativity bias. That's the primal response to life. That what is bad, I have to pay attention to. And that's not really how we live. You know what I mean? Like that's not effective. So it's looking at the past and remembering the bad things. And then it goes, what if that happens again? And it tries to predict the future. And then it does. And then it creates it. So we want to get in there and give it the positive, even if so that's why we envision positively. We're trying to tell our mind it's okay to predict this future, and then our body will follow suit.
Now, a lot of people have used hypnotherapy to stop bad habits. So I know in the early 90s, my grandma used hypnotherapy to stop smoking.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other ways people use hypnotherapy?
Everything you can think of. So, well, first of all, I'll give you a case from my own practice. I had a client, and she shared this on my podcast. So, even though I'm not going to say her name, I have permission to share her story. So, a woman in her early 30s, and she had this diagnosis that was so difficult. It's called spondyloarthritis, which is like a globalized arthritis, like her whole body, all of these different areas. It started like in her shoulders, and she was a healthy woman too, like very healthy, young, fit, you know. And then it got so bad she could barely walk. She couldn't chew because her jaw was one of the things that was really sore. She was on a liquid diet, losing weight, and she had a newborn that she couldn't be alone with because she couldn't pick up her daughter. So her parents or her husband had to put her daughter in her arms to breastfeed, and so she could never be alone with her daughter. And it was, can you imagine being like 33 years old and having this happen to you? She had a genetic marker for it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
pathology on pathology. This is what she thought her life was going to be. We started working together. We also used human design, which was very helpful for her, which helps us to understand how to use our energy. But it was the hypnotherapy, and she, at about 6 months, like probably 60% improvement, she could pick up her daughter. At 10 months, she had to actually go on a really strong biologic medicine that was not only expensive, but it was very invasive, and she had to stop breastfeeding her daughter. It was like this whole thing that was like, really, she didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But we got her to a place where, in a session where she's like, she was fine if that decision had to be made. And so that was really great. That was a big crowning piece. Even though she'd had all of this stuff, she still was meant to go, because she had damage happening. Her tissues and her bones were being damaged from this inflammation that she had. So she went to the doctor to get trained on this new medicine, and the doctor assessed her and said, I don't know what you've been doing, but you have reversed the damage that I saw before. And I'm going to call you non-active disease. You don't need to take this medicine.
Wow. That's
So
huge.
huge. And she actually ended up going to HMI she's going to get her she's become a hypnotherapist herself too. So yeah, that was huge. And it's been a year or maybe a year and a half, and it's maintained. She hasn't had any, and she's had like, where she's like, okay, I overdid it. I may be getting a little flare. And then she just doesn't do too much that day, and she's fine. So it's been really incredible. But, it's really effective. You would think allergies, we think those are just kind of like, that's how we are. It's very
Really?
effective on allergy. Yeah, isn't that, I find that fascinating too, right?
That is huge.
Yeah,
Huge. I will be
it's
sending
very
this
effective.
podcast episode to tons of people. That
Okay.
is amazing. Why is it so supportive for allergies? And are we talking about seasonal allergies or food allergies?
I mean, there are some things that they are you have an allergic reaction to it. You have an inflammatory response to it because it isn't right for you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gluten intolerant. Actually, I think I tested celiac last time, but that is a food that really humans aren't, we don't have enzymes to break down gluten. We don't. We just kind of pass it. And so it isn't correct for me. So there are some things that just aren't correct for us. You know what I mean? Like there's something that is a bit more hardwired, and it will not support our health to take it. You know what I mean? But yes, food allergies. It's worked on food allergies. It works on, if you think about it, like histamines, it's
Mm-hmm.
encoding something as though it is a poison.
Mm-hmm.
So if it isn't actually a poison for us, then we can tell our mind, tell our body it doesn't have to register that as a poison. But if it
Got
is a
it.
poison for us,
Yes.
yeah, then I think that the subconscious mind, I mean, it's just the body, the tissue is not going to be able to make that transformation.
So if someone's
Yeah.
having a problem with seasonal allergies, when something blooms
hmm
or there's a change in season, something's blowing in the air in the area that they're currently living in, and they're having that histamine response, tons of inflammation in the eyes and the face, that scratchy throat. How many sessions, hypnotherapy sessions, do people often have to clear that up?
Well, of course, there's nothing set in stone about that. I mean, there are some people who stop smoking in one session, but there is some kind of magic about 6 sessions. A
Hmm.
lot, like that is a standard. 6 sessions can really change someone's life. Now, the thing is, the reason it's not set in stone is because, let's say the reason this person has allergies is because their subconscious mind actually feels like they need to move, that they shouldn't live there. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Then
Yes.
we may be getting into some root issues that are about why they aren't moving when they really moving would be best for them. We might need to get
Yeah.
under some things about inner child stuff. You know what I mean? It might take a little more time because it's a bit more complex than just, oh, my body is encoding this as a poison. There could be some deeper issues. But I'll just tell you that 6 sessions is some kind of magic number. And it's funny. Hypnotherapists, I teach marketing at the Hypnotherapy College because we need to be on our marketing because we lose our clients. They go on, and that's great. We love that.
Yes, yes. You need to know how to get
You
new
can't keep,
clients because
yeah.
you heal them. That's a beautiful thing.
It's a wonderful problem if you think about it. And,
Yeah.
I have long-standing clients, but it's like after they go through a certain big bulk, they see me once or twice or 3 times, or maybe at most it's like 2 or 3 times. Like every other month is the most I would have someone, and that's someone who's on like a spiritual path where they really want to keep advancing. You know what I mean? And they'll show up at the session. I'm like, oh, so what's going on? What are we working on? And they're like, everything's great. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we're complete.
What are we working on? And they they want to do some big spiritual expansion. That's where they are. They're in this place of living as their higher self.
Yeah.
The personal life is really blossoming and it's working. And so they're like, just trying to work on and having their higher self live out their personal life. And that's where they are. And that's wonderful. Of course, I love that work as well. So
Well,
yeah, so
you
so
have a great quote on your website, and I wanted to share it. That psychoanalysis can be expected to have a 38% recovery rate after approximately 600 sessions, and hypnotherapy can be expected to have a 93% recovery rate after an average of sessions.
exactly. Wow, right? I mean, even just say 600 is huge, but 93 to 38, huge. So, and the thing is, some psychoanalysts, well, I shouldn't say psychoanalysts, that's a specific classical form of therapy, but some therapists, licensed therapists, they use hypnosis
Hmm.
for that reason, like
Yeah.
transpersonal therapists and mind-body therapists, and they're using that because, and somatic therapists, that's another way. Basically, they're all working in the similar place. But yeah, hypnotherapists, we have that good problem of breaking up with our clients. Not breaking up, but sending them on their way.
Yes, I'm sure you've read that book by that famous psychotherapist, now hypnotherapist, who's the one that really started to step out and talk about past lives because he was working on a client and doing hypnotherapy with them and they dropped into a past life. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Weiss, I think.
Yes.
Is it Brian
Yes.
Weiss?
Yes.
Yeah. Am I getting the first name right? But yes, I have. I don't know. I'm missing the name too, but it is Weiss is his last
Yes.
name. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Have you had any
Yes.
clients drop
Right.
into past lives?
Well, I actually guide past life, therapy. And so people come to, I mean, I'm the transpersonal hypnotherapist, which is another way to say spiritual hypnotherapist. I'm a spiritual teacher and I'm a psychic and everything. So people come to me for those experiences. So it's not happened. Oh, maybe one time it did happen accidentally, not accidentally. It happened. We weren't specifically designing the session for that,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I'm remembering just one where we were just doing a regular journey, but she was clearly in a different life and a whole different experience, and she was in that life with her guardian angel, and it was yeah. So that did happen spontaneously. That's a better way to say it. That's where her soul wanted to take that particular. But yeah, it's something that I do. When I do past life regression, I do it as a package. If it's more than one session, unless I've already been working with you. But the reason is because we'll do a past life, and if it's someone's first time,
Mm-hmm.
they'll get one kind of life that's very, it's useful for this life. The second one we go a little further, and we go into like life between lives, and we actually
Ooh.
see what's going on in between. Yeah. And then another session, we go to probably some other kinds of origins. If they're a star seed, then we'll go to another planet and see what it is that they were doing there. But we do the life between life is so fascinating because they'll be in that place where they are choosing how they're going to compose this life and what time space they want to put it in and for that greatest evolution and who is there helping them to counsel them on how to create this new life. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, where
Yeah.
and how
It's
can people
wonderful.
book sessions with you? Because I'm sure people are going to be listening to this and there's all sorts of things that they want to clear up and clear out in their life. So, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, my name is spelled Triciacarr, and then it's just the word charm at the end of it, because my podcast is called Charmed Life, but it's charm without the ED at the end of it. So Tricia Carr Charm. And, there's services there. I'm regularly teaching classes in animal communication and mediumship. And then, yeah, I do one-on-one. And I actually have a few different learning containers. One is just like, a couple of them are just kind of beautiful. One's for empaths, and one is for building a meditation practice and your intuition. And there's some human design in that. Yeah, but yeah, just my website. You'll see all that's going on there.
Perfect. And I'll have in the show notes a link to your website there for everyone that's listening, as well as a link to your podcast in case they want to tune in to more conversations like this. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. I learned so much, which is exactly what I wanted to dive into these topics. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come in here.
Oh, thank you so much for all of the work you're doing on our beautiful world. Thanks for having me.